Okay, morning. I'm just going to go through the 2006 ordinary level cash budgeting question there, and I'm going to go through it very quickly because there isn't a lot to it in comparison to the higher level ones, really. So just to make things a little bit quicker, what I've done is I've written out some of a kind of a template. So I've just put a heading, cash budget of Joan O'Donnell, June to October. Now, no marks for the heading usually in this one. The receipts. And I've got debtors down there. What we're used to from higher level is, something like sales, cash sales, sales 1 month, credit sales 1 month rather, credit sales 2 months. So in this case, there are only credit sales 2 months. So if you put in debtors or credit sales 2 months, that's fine. Either one is fine. Put in a few payments. You can see there's only 3 of them. Then the net cash, opening balance, closing balance. Now again, I would say if you put net cash, opening cash, closing cash, that would work fine as well. You get marks for that. So let's have a look at the question for a second. It says, Joan O'Donnell, the following information in May 2006. Now, of the types that we're doing this week, you will usually be giving the debtors figure, the creditors figure, and maybe some other information. In this case, it's a bank overdraft, which is going to serve as your opening cash for the first month. So it could also easily be a cash figure they give you instead of an overdraft, or a bank figure which isn't an overdraft, which is money in the bank. So be mindful of that. And then down here as well, they give you some extra information. And so just like I said, again, there are 3 payments here, but really you'll probably have 4 or 5 as the in the examples that you're going to practice after this, but nothing too difficult. But if there's something unusual that you haven't come across before, by all means text me and we'll go through it. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing they say is they give you in that grid there, they give you the sales for June, July, August, September and October. They also say in the second line under it, it says all sales are on credit and are paid for 2 months after the month of sale. So for instance, if you do sales in June, you don't get the money for that until August, or if you do it in July, you don't get the money until September. So in a cash sense, June sales will go into August's column, because that's when you'll receive June sales, or the money from June sales. Also though, that means prior to June you had done some sales. If we look at the debtors figure up here, made up of April sales and May sales. So those sales that you did before June, they'll start to get paid for during June and July. So April, if we count 2 months from then, is April, May, June. So April's sales will be paid for in June, so you'll be receiving that cash in June. So that's the first thing we'll put in here. June, 73,000. And I've just put a double line under because there's only one item going in here, so I'm kind of leaving that as the total, if you like. So next, May's sales, the 48,000. That's going to be paid to you in, if we count 2 months, May, June, July. So that 48,000 will go into July. 48,000. Okay. Then June's, 2 months after June is August. So June's sales here we see is 83,000. That will go into August, etc., etc. I'm just going to fill in the last 2 there. 76,000 and 97,000, isn't it? Okay, now down to the purchases. A little bit unusual here, but nothing difficult to handle. If we look underneath the grid, the third line under it, it says all purchases are on credit except 19,000 for cash in August and are paid for 1 month after the month of purchase. So what I've done is I've created 2 lines here, one for cash purchases and one for all the rest of the purchases, the normal purchases you do, which are paid for 1 month after you receive those purchases, or you make the purchase. Okay, so let's have a look at the cash one first. It says, where are we here? All purchase on credit except 19,000 for cash in August. So we can just slip that straight in there since it's a cash purchase paid for at the time. If we go to August here, we can put in 19,000. Now there were other credit purchases that we paid for during August from July, but they'll go into the next line here under credit purchases 1 month, also in the August column. So we'll get to them in a minute. So that's really the only cash, so we put nothing else in that line. Next, the credit purchases. So again, it says all purchases are paid for 1 month later. So it means in June we should be paying for the purchases we did in May. And if we look up here at the top where it says creditors 1st of the 6th, 2006, 55,000 here, that must have been, since creditors are people we owe money to, that must have been the purchases in May. So I'm going to put that in here. Credit purchases 1 month. The May purchases get paid in June. Okay, then if we look down here for the June purchases, it says 44,000. That must be paid for in July. So we put the 44,000 here into July. Then if we go back here to the purchases in July, there were 51,000 of purchases. That'll be paid for in August. So again, 51,000 here. Okay. And then we go to the August purchases. Now, the August purchase is 62,000, but we already said that 19,000 of that was cash. So if we subtract the 19,000 from that, we're left with 19 from 62 is 43,000, isn't it? The rest of that 43,000 in purchases we'll pay for the following month, which is September. So we'll put 43,000 into September's column. Is that alright? And then everything carries on as normal after that. September's purchases, which are, let me see, 58,000, will be paid for in October. So 58,000 paid for in October. Is that okay? The next line I'm going to skip over quickly. It says, if you look for the first line underneath the grid of figures, it says all our expenses are paid as they are incurred. So they're paid for straight away. So June's expenses are paid for in June. So that 15,000 for June's expenses here goes into June's column. So, and the same for all the rest of the expenses. So I'm just going to write them in very quickly. 15,000, 17,000, 14,000, 18,000. And 20,000, isn't it? Okay, then since I prepared this earlier, I just totaled these columns here as we would have done at the higher level, and then all I'm doing to get the net cash is I'm adding, these are plus figures and down here these are minus figures. So plus 73 minus 70 gives me a plus 3,000. And I'm doing that for each of these. Plus 48 and a minus 61 gives me, it's going to be a minus this time, minus 13,000. And I'm just going to fill in the rest of those quickly there. Minus 1,000, plus 15,000, and a plus 19,000. Sorry, 19,000. Okay, so that's the net cash, I suppose, at the end of each month. But at the start of June, we had an opening cash balance, and it was, if we go back to the question, it was a minus, or it was an overdraft. It was money we owed rather than we had in the bank. And we see bank overdraft, 22,000, so we treat that as a minus 22,000 that we started off this cash budget with, so minus 22. Then all I do is add these two together, the 3 and the 20. It's a plus 3 and a minus 22 gives me a minus 19. And just like the higher level, the closing balance for 1 month becomes the opening balance for the next month. So I must bring that minus 19 over here. Add the two of these minuses together and I get a minus 32,000, isn't it? That becomes my opening balance here. Add the two of these together, I get a minus 33,000. That becomes my opening balance up here. Oops. Okay, add the two of these together and I get a minus, what is it, 18,000, isn't it?